Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the regular scheduled meeting, City of Griffin Board of Commissioners, October 26th. We'll open with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner David Rock, followed by invocation by Commissioner Truman Tinsley III.
Please join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Most gracious Heavenly Father, we're here today to ask for your blessings and guidance in the performance of our duties as elected officials. We pray for strength, love, knowledge, and understanding. Help us to recognize and solve the problems that are presented. Make our solutions fair and just for the best interests of everyone. Help us to overcome our shortcomings and keep us united as a team to work for the betterment of the city and its people. We pray in your name. Amen.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. We have the approval of the agenda. We have a motion to approve it as presented. Mr. Tinsley with the motion, Mrs. Murray with the second. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. 7-0. First item under presentation and delegations, presentation of a proclamation commemorating Retired Educators Day and recognizing the valuable contribution of retired educators. Ms. Leo Hill is here to receive the proclamation.
Welcome, Mrs. Hill. We're so glad to have you tonight.
Nice to be here.
Proclamation. A proclamation commemorating Retired Educators Day, whereas the governor of the state of Georgia has proclaimed Sunday, November 7, 2021 as Retired Educators Day in Georgia, whereas there are more than 135,000 retired educators in Georgia, more than 31,000 of whom are members of the Georgia Retired Educators Association. Whereas the retired educators of Georgia donate thousands of hours of volunteer service, their talents to the cause of public education, and their efforts to provide academic development and valuable contributions to the welfare of their respective communities across the state. Retired educators possess valuable knowledge and use their lifetime of experience and skills to enrich the educational process in a myriad of ways, often as a major source of insight and direction in education for our community, our state, and our nation. And whereas more than 60 years, the Georgia Retired Educators Association has dedicated its efforts to improving the welfare of retired educators and has provided opportunities for them to become involved in community activities. And whereas because of citizens of Griffin, Georgia, are grateful for the work done by retired educators, it is appropriate that a day be designated for citizens to express their appreciation for the valuable contributions that retired educators have made and to continue to make for a betterment of human lives and for society. And whereas local churches, civic groups, governmental entities, and community leaders seek to recognize those lasting contributions made here by retired educators whose altruistic objectives is ultimately to leave our society better than they found it. Now therefore be resolved that the City of Griffin Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim the day of November 7, 2021 as Retired Educators Day and call upon the citizens of the City of Griffin to observe the day in an appropriate manner, honoring retired educators. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Griffin to be affixed to the proclamation executed on this, the 26th day of October, 2021, proclaiming the 7th day of November, 2021 in the City of Griffin to be Retired Educators Day. Signed, Douglas S. Holber, Mayor, Jessica W. O'Connor, City Manager.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And my wife.
Thank you.
If you'd like to say a few words.
Thank you so much for this recognition on behalf of the Griffin Spalding Retired Educators Association. I stand as president, and thank you so much for this recognition. We as a group certainly work very hard to represent Griffin Spalding County. We do about 20,000 hours of volunteer work in this county. And so we are retired and we are not retired. We certainly are interested in what happens in the school system, and we are here to lend a hand wherever we can. And we, for the community, throughout the community, we're constantly doing something for children, because we have not outgrown the love of children. And thank you so much for this opportunity, and may God bless each one of you. And may you have a special Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas.
Thank you, Ms. Hill. Have a blessed day. I can't wait till my wife gets to be a retired educator. How about you, Mr. Gordon?
Won't be long, sir.
Will we long?
Won't be long.
Moving into citizens' comment. At this time, Mayor, we look forward to comments from the audience. Comments relate to a specific agenda item not listed on the agenda for a public hearing or to a concern within the jurisdiction of the city. Commission meetings serve the purpose of conducting city business and are not a forum for the unlimited expression of opinion. The mayor reserves the right to limit comments to matters germane to city business and may refer speakers to the city manager or other staff for a resolution. With that being said, is there anybody on my left side who'd like to come before the board? Anybody on my left side? Yes, sir. You can please come forward and state your name and address for the record, please, sir.
My name is Stevie Jones,
Your address, Mr. Jones?
1738 Pineview Road.
Welcome, sir.
I've never been to one of these before, so I don't really know how it goes. I assume that I can address the situation that's dealing with the city of Griffin.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I've been a resident here for 2.5 years. Where I live at North Griffin, the only electric service is the city of Griffin. And my comment and complaint was that no other electric service come to that area. But the city of Griffin charged more for electricity in my area than any other power company in the metro area. My second concern was that just per se, my bill is due on the first of the month. They give you a 7-day grace period to pay the bill. But if you pay your bill on the second of the month, then they charge you 10% of your bill, which I think that's not fair because other power companies don't do that. And lastly, is that in that grace period, they give you 7 days. Some people get paid every 2 weeks and they just live and check to check. But if you don't pay within 7 days, they get the power off and charge you a reconnection fee. My concern is, why do they charge so much and why they charge you extra in that grace period?
Your points are well taken. If you don't mind, Ms. Jennifer Freeman is back, our electric department director. If you can get her name and phone number to her, and then she can get staff to go over some of those issues, would you, that be okay with you?
That'll be fine.
Okay, Ms. Jennifer Freeman will be glad to give your name and number.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else on my left side that come for the board? Welcome. Name and address for the record, please.
Hey, my name's Ashley Upson. I live at 694 Brook Circle. Can two people speak at once, or is it just one person?
You can come up.
Okay.
A couple times.
We were here to address number 6 on the ordinance, just addressing like the short-term rentals. We had an incident in our neighborhood a couple of months ago with an Airbnb, which we didn't realize there were Airbnbs in the neighborhood. And I realize that's a profitable business. However, we did have an issue. One of our neighbors who was threatened by a tenant in an Airbnb, and he was circling our neighborhood, trying to fight him. He was an older man, and I think this man came from Miami, Florida. And it felt like an unsafe situation. We don't know who's coming in and out of the neighborhood. And we have children that play outside all the time. In the streets, and this man was being extremely aggressive. And so that was a concern of ours once we were made aware that there's now an Airbnb in the neighborhood. And then my husband was going to share.
So Brett Upson, 694 Brook Circle. Just to piggyback off that, in my 10 years of law enforcement, the last 5 of which are spent in narcotics, the new trend of Airbnbs and VRBOs are to rent a location in order to do a transfer of narcotics. So that way they're not detected, they're moving around from place to place. I know this to be true within, not necessarily Griffin, but our area, working specific cases where cartel members will actually give you an address of an Airbnb that they've rented, and they come in and out, you do the transaction on that. The problem is these apps, they don't vet the people who are doing anything. There's no background check done, so you never know who is next door to you or what's going on in that particular time. It's also used as a huge tool for fugitives that are on the run, especially with third-party people making their reservations for them, check in or checking on the app and just going in and evading capture, which leaves that to, fugitives possibly being in a neighborhood. Just would ask that y'all take that into consideration and put the regulations that need to be put in place in order to keep the neighborhoods of Griffin safe.
Thank you very much. And we still have citizens' comments or anything else on the left side that come forward the board. Anybody on our right side? Yes, ma'am, if you please come forward. Welcome.
My name is Judy Bowman. I live at 70 Terracedale Court. I've been living here in Griffin for 18 years. My concern is rental property in general. I don't think that people who rent these places always vet the people properly. They don't abide by the rules, take the trash cans back when they're supposed to. Some of the houses, one of them specifically on East College, is in disrepair, and I don't think it serves our neighborhood at all. These people who rent the property should be checking more what's going on in those homes. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir. Please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Hi, I'm Alexander Hope. I live at 526 Brookwood Terrace here in Griffin. Thank you again for the school proclamation. My mom's a teacher and I'm a product of the Griffin Spalding County school system myself. And I know that tonight there's a big ball game tonight, but I am here to talk about the short-term rental ordinance briefly. And I know this is the second reading on the consent agenda, but I wanted to have someone speak against it. I haven't heard a lot of arguments against it, but I did have some concerns myself. I am an attorney here in Griffin. I'm the incoming president of the Bar Association. I serve on the city's environmental council. None of this is on behalf of any of those groups. These are just my personal opinions. But it feels like the ordinance that is written and has been proposed is sort of us trying to craft a solution to a problem that we don't fully understand. And I understand that we have some specific instances, but I don't think what I'm saying is necessarily in conflict with that of what the previous commenter said. And that sounds like a serious issue, but let me try to distinguish what I'm trying to say. I don't think we necessarily know if we have a real problem with short-term rentals in Griffin, Georgia. I don't feel like there's a lot of them around right now, and we don't have a lot of information on it. And I feel like the way that this ordinance is written, we're wading into some murky legal waters of what a city can do and what is an encroachment on the rights of private property owners. And it seems like we're kind of getting three justifications for it thus far by the city attorney, which is one, we've gotten complaints and we just heard a very specific complaint that sounded very serious. Two is that we don't necessarily know what we need to collect information, it sounds like. And three is that there is, it sounds like money coming in, but we don't know how to check the math on whether we're collecting what we're supposed to have collected on that. And I can appreciate how this ordinance would accomplish all three of those things, but I think that it goes beyond that into some pretty powerful legal stuff that we could accomplish another way, or at least that this ordinance doesn't have to do it this way, and that I would ask that it be tabled for that discussion to happen. If I could just talk about those three things briefly. With the complaints, I appreciate that we just heard a very specific example, but we don't know how many, we don't know where they are, who's reporting them, and what the outcome was, like right now. We know that there have been a few, but we don't know what the result was. With our current code, we have laws and ordinances on the book to address any type of nuisance issue or illegal activity. We just need to enforce the laws that we have, and we have perfectly good legal, nobody can argue about them laws. Enforce that way rather than through this new ordinance that is potentially not legal and is going to create some kind of liability for the city and try to enforce it this way. We also, we don't have any example of where a code enforcement officer went out in response to a complaint about a short-term rental, and they got there and there's noise and there's a party that is in violation of the ordinances or whatever, and they just threw their hands up and said, there's nothing I can do, we don't have a short-term rental ordinance. I haven't seen evidence of that yet, and in this instance, I can totally appreciate the comments about illegal activity, but that's illegal activity, and that needs to be enforced with the laws that we have, I think, rather than passing new laws that we're going to have to figure out. Two was investigation. I can appreciate that this ordinance would accomplish that, but we're going way beyond investigation in this ordinance to do some pretty powerful stuff by telling people that they have to apply, that the city has to approve it, that they have to pay. $100 is fairly nominal, but that's the start. This is the starter ordinance. Who knows where it's going to go? And then the city can tell you that you can't do this activity on your property. I think that's pretty powerful stuff. The third one was checking your math and stuff. And it doesn't sound like the vendors are cooperating well with the city to give information about where this money's coming in. We don't know where it's coming from. I think that the way to deal with that is to try to work more with them. And if they won't do that, at the end of the day, I'm an attorney, you just sue them. It's not a big deal, you just sue them. It's Airbnb or whoever it is, they have a lot of legal resources. I understand that that's not awesome for the city, but, going and making the guy down the road that's just renting his house out on the weekend when he's out of town, and you're going to be able to bully him around a lot more. He doesn't have the pockets of Airbnb. And so I just think, you're going to be more successful. I know you will be. But that doesn't mean it's the right way to do it. I feel like there's another way to do that as well, is what I'm trying to say. So I think the ordinance as written goes beyond simply investigation and figuring all these other things out. I think it's pretty powerful stuff. I think we're kind of going. I'll just say thank you for your time. I think you get the gist of what I'm saying, and I appreciate it. It's an honor to come up here every time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else in the audience? Yes, ma'am. Please come forward. Welcome. Name, address, for the record, please.
Chitcher Wheeler, 130 South Hill Street.
Go ahead.
I really just found out about this afternoon, and I came just to listen and see what was going to transpire. But having heard a little bit of this, I felt like I should come up and speak. I have a great deal of experience with Airbnb. I have multiple units. I have never had the police called. They're in my backyard. I know who's there. I monitor it. It's, I think, a very good thing for the people that are there, especially during the pandemic when they didn't want to stay in hotels. They had an alternative that gave them space and distance from others. I've met some lovely people doing this. My family have had rentals for years. It's just, a part of how I live. And I have a property here in Griffin that I had planned to live in part of myself, have part of it available for my children when they come to visit, and then rent the other part when they're not there, so that I did have some income to help offset the cost of everything. If the ordinance, comes about and things become difficult, it is not somewhere that I would want to live. If I own a property, I want to be able to control my property, and I would not want to have a property and develop property in a city that dictates what people can and cannot do on their property. I don't like HOAs, I don't want to have to paint my house a certain color, and I don't like people telling me what I can and can't do with something that I own. I understand there's laws and rules, but if it's done correctly and the taxes are paid and the people are checked out, you don't have problems. There's good and bad people in all walks of life and all situations. And I just think that this, I understand from their point, and I understand, what other people's comments are. I just wanted you to have my opinion as well. Thank you for your time.
Yes, ma'am. Is there anybody else like to come for the board? Thank you all for your words of wisdom and comments. Moving into no public hearing side, moving into consent agenda. I'd like for us to take items 2 through 9, but pull out number 6, dealing with the short-term rentals. Do we have a motion to do that? Motion with Mr. Brock, second by Mrs. Murray. All in favor of that, please signal by raising your hand. All against, like sign. So 6, 1, Ms. Ward, against. So we take number 6, consider on second reading an ordinance amending chapter 22 buildings and building regulations by adding a new article to a number Article 7, short-term rentals of the Code of Griffin, Georgia, in order to create and administer regulations for short-term rental housing. City Attorney Drew Whalen will address. Mr. Whalen, you heard some of the concerns and criticism. Just to do our due diligence, could you maybe respond on, and is there a way that the ordinance can be put up on the screen?
What is the concern?
I think the ordinance itself, of course, Kelsey worked on this
Yes, sir.
primarily, but she and I worked closely together on it. And I think the ordinance is typical of the short-term rental type ordinances that we're seeing emerge around the country. I think there were several things that we tried to stay away from that we thought, could be going too far, and we left that out. So I'm comfortable with the ordinance as presented to you.
So let me add this, my portion of the dialogue. I have Airbnb literally all over the world. And that is a literal statement, and it is not uncommon to encounter properties that are required to have a license, either for tracking purposes, for safety purposes. There's an abundance of reasons why, and as someone who has stayed in those different properties, I have felt more comfortable knowing that there was some facilitation or that someone had regulated some oversight of those properties, because in a perfect situation, everyone does what they're supposed to do, there's no issue. But that is not always the case. We know that to be true. People cut corners wherever they can. And so I don't find this to be any way abnormal for the business of short-term rentals. It may be abnormal for a community this size or something like that, but as a means of management, I think a lot of cities and communities do this, and I will note that part of the reason that there is some regulation of it is it does affect the tourism in the community. It does affect hotel motel tax. It affects various other things that we find to be significant to us as a board. So where I know it can be uncomfortable for people to be told how to manage their property, that's literally what we do on a regular basis. We told people that they can't park RVs in their yards. We've told them they can't put solar panels on their homes. Pretty much we tell people what they can and can't do at their house. And so I don't know that this is any different from saying not that you can't do it, but just that you need to come and make us aware that this property exists. And we seem to be very protective of residential areas, and by and large, Airbnbs, that's the beauty of them, is you get to be in the neighborhood. So where I understand the concern, it's really not that abnormal.
Maybe just to clarify a couple of things, this language, the majority of it did come from Savannah, Atlanta, Brookhaven, and Woodstock. Kelsey, in Sandy Springs, Kelsey did a lot of research on this. She actually went through 11th Circuit Court of Appeals cases. There have been some challenges to ordinances in Nashville in particular. She made sure that our language did not reflect what was challenged whatsoever because it was held unconstitutional. So we do not believe that this is an illegal ordinance. We have gone, I think Kelsey went above and beyond making sure that that's the case, and even has every single page commented in my version to tell me why it's written the way it's written. So I'm very confident as an attorney in what this does for us. And part of the reason I'm even more confident is we received an open records request in regards to this ordinance, and I couldn't answer the request because we can't tell you what's the short-term rental and what's not. That's the main point of this ordinance. If they are then required to register with us, we can't answer those questions. Is this that big of a problem in certain areas? Right now, I can't tell you. I don't know if it's owner occupied. I don't know if it's a short-term rental, but if we make them register, then we know. So that's the main purpose of this. Yes, it does then say if you're a bad renter and or you have bad renters or you're a bad landlord, then there are some possible violations that you'll be subject to at that point. But that's way beyond and very generalized compared to what we have seen even be upheld, so much so that they count how much silverware they have in the kitchen. This has nothing like that in that ordinance because we do think that's overstepping, but this is not that.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to reiterate, so we felt the need to have an ordinance because it was happening around the city. We weren't really aware, so it's just kind of a way to be unified across and have some consistency with the way these work. Is that what we're doing?
Right, what I understand, the complaints that we received seem to be sort of in the central part of the city. I haven't heard any complaints from the eastern side or the western side, but it's been in the north of the city, the downtown area, and in the south of the city. So I don't know why, I guess more centrally located to downtown, I think is what you normally see. And if you go look on Airbnb or VRBO, you could see that. And normally their tagline is, you can walk downtown. So I think that's why you see it on either side, a couple of blocks of downtown, but you don't really see it on the perimeters. But I also don't think that we know where they are, what they are, because if they're rented for that particular time and we search a particular date, it's not going to come up. So we just don't know.
Griffin's not a resort community, and not a strong influx of tourists coming in to go to the beach or something like that.
We do have a lot of rentals.
Have a lot of rentals, but some of the most long-term rentals.
Right, this is not
This is only short-term, 30 days or less.
Ronnie, explain, please explain what you mean, we got a lot of rentals,
We have a lot of rental property in Griffin.
short term,
We got a lot of long-term.
The bulk of it is long-term.
but we're talking about short term.
We are, but what I heard,
What do you mean?
you know, and I'm thank you for saying that. When I hear people talk about the short-term rental and what we're going to require that those people who do the short-term rental on their property that they need to do, I wish we could do the same thing for a long-term rental for people that live, that's been terrorized in these neighborhoods for decades upon decades, because people got landlords that put people in these places. They don't verify who's staying. We have criminals living and people putting dogs in houses, just the dogs only. In some of these neighborhoods, some of these drug houses. So when we talk about these short-term rentals and what we're going to do to them, I hope that we take the same type of look when we look at long-term rentals and try to impose the same thing. Because I'm for not only East College and those neighborhoods being taken care of, I want to see neighborhoods throughout the city. So if we're gonna do this for short term, I'm in agreement.
Define a short-term rental, please, sir.
It's defined in the ordinance. A short-term rental means an accommodation for transient guests where in exchange for compensation, a residential dwelling unit, either the primary structure or any approved accessory dwelling is provided for lodging for a period of time not to exceed 30 consecutive days.
So we still have that problem? I don't think so.
No, I think what he's saying is that he'd like to see it extended to long-term, but there are some very strict laws in regards to that doesn't allow this kind of thing you can't have a rental registry for long-term rentals.
Any other questions or comments?
And we're gonna table item 6.
No, I just brought it, I just pulled it out. We have a motion to approve or deny.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Ward. Any more discussion? All in favor, please signal by raise your hand. All against, like sign. Two against or for?
You said raise hand, I didn't.
Okay.
Did you raise your hand?
It's a no if you don't vote.
Are you not voting, David, or is that a no vote?
It's a no vote. Okay.
So 5-2 with Mr. Tinsley and Mr. Brock voting against. Thank you. Moving to the regular agenda. Consider,
The other consent agenda, rather do the other consent items, y'all haven't actually
Oh, we
adopted.
haven't voted on
we
it.
didn't vote on those?
No,
Okay, we had a motion and a second.
we don't have a motion second on the
Okay.
others.
No, there wasn't anything. We voted to separate them.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve items 2 through 9, excluding number 6.
I make a motion.
Mrs. Ward with a motion, Ms.
Question,
Murray with a second, question by Mrs. Flowers.
number 5 for the Gray Keep tablet. Who am I asking? Oh, right here.
It might depend on the question.
I'm just wondering why, is that money coming from IT or is that money coming from PD?
PD, but it's in IT's budget as part of a cost allocation, I believe, correct?
Okay. I was.
So it came from police department, but it's currently funded in IT.
So then, obviously, you're in charge of all of the IT stuff, but whose department owns it? IT or does the police department?
The city of Griffin.
Well,
City of Griffin.
Yes, but I mean, in terms of who's responsible for,
We treat it kind of like Cogsdale, like customer service uses Cogsdale, but then the IT department makes sure that it's up to date, it has security patches, it meets the minimum specifications, stuff like that.
okay, so it will technically stay under IT, but it will be
Used by.
Is it exclusively, because I see it says for smartphones and tablets, but,
I don't see the IT department having any forensic use. I mean, if we were in a criminal,
It will be exclusive, everything's done by search warrant or court order.
okay, so, and I guess that was my question, so it gives us the access, but we can only use the access after someone gives us permission to have access.
Consent, a search warrant, Title III, or a court order would be the only way to get it.
Okay, and then at that point, we now have the technology to actually obtain the information that we're looking for.
Right, we already have the technology to do a good number of those things, but if you think about it, every time you turn around, a new platform comes out, a new phone comes out, and this is a way to keep up with it.
Okay, and then the final question, I saw that the contract was for a year, so is this an annual cost, or is this like a buy-in?
this is an annual cost, but I don't think that full amount is
It
annual.
won't be that full amount in total, but we're also working some partnerships with other agencies that they may very well bear our costs in the future.
Okay. That was it.
We have a motion, second, all in favor, please signal by raising your hand. 7-0. Moving into the regular agenda. Consider minutes of the Board of Commissioners special call meeting, special call joint meeting with Spalding County Water and Sewer Facilities Authority, October 12. Mr. Tinsley was absent.
I need to separate them. I was at one and not the other, but it says I was at both of them. I'm sorry, it's okay. I got your back.
Which one were you?
I was not at the special call meeting, I was in the parking lot, because y'all went so fast,
Oh,
and then I was at the complaint meeting.
so let's take the call meeting first. All in favor of the minutes of the call meeting, please. Motion by Mr. McCord. Motion by Ms. Murray, second by Mr. McCord for the call meeting, special call meeting. All in favor, please signal by raising your hand. And against are 2 abstentions, Ms. Flowers and Mr. Tinsley. And then we have a special call joint meeting. We have a motion to approve the joint meeting. Ms. Murray with a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Mrs. Flowers with the second. All in favor, please signal by raise your hand. And 6, 1 abstention, Mr. Tinsley.
Can we just make sure that the record
I'm sorry,
shows?
I did two, do it too.
You abstaining?
Abstain, so. No, abstain, I've been voting no.
We won't know in the minutes of the meeting.
So we had a special call meeting, Mr. We had like a pre-meeting purchase, 5, 2 abstentions, and then a special call meeting with the water authority.
Can the minutes just reflect that it was a, because I got an attorney in my ear, it's a call meeting. The first one is not a special call, just a call meeting, which is not, it's not a big deal, but it's just a call meeting. It wasn't a special call. And the second one was a special call.
What did you say about an attorney in your ear?
Yes, sir. The guy that's sitting to my left is an attorney.
So I see.
I was speaking to you in your
There
ear.
is nothing in the open.
I know what is that.
Called a special call.
So the special meetings, so that first meeting that we did the real estate acquisition was just a call meeting.
And both just called me.
Okay, so the word special.
The word special should not be there.
So the call meeting, which was to purchase the real estate,
It's scheduled.
scheduled,
Instead of.
okay, was a 5 and 2 abstention votes. Out of the call
Wait a
meeting,
minute, is it a
5, 2 abstentions.
one no vote and?
No, we're still
No, he's correct. He's
call
correct.
meeting on the real estate, what happened
Okay, on
first.
the first one.
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Flowers and Mr. Tinsley were not present.
Okay, on the second one.
So on the second meeting, we had the joint city water authority meeting that started, I think, at 8:30.
Mhm.
And we had a motion from Ms. Murray, a second by Ms. Flowers to approve. And so I called for a vote. And so, Mr. Brock, you're doing a no vote?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we have a,
What do we need to correct on the minutes? I guess I'm not understanding why we have a no vote on the minutes. Normally that says they're incorrect, so we would correct those.
I'm not sure we said anything correct in the last 30 minutes.
No, what she's asking on the meeting, we had a meeting, the water sewage meeting. You voted no on the minutes. Is it something you want to correct it, that we all may need to know about?
No, I'm fine.
All right.
Okay.
Red line.
moving into the number 11, consider acceptance of the terms and conditions required to receive funds from the 2020 Justice Assistance Grant funded by the Department of Justice in the amount of $30,223, and consider an intergovernmental agreement with Spalding County as it relates to the 2020 Justice Assistance Grant. Mr. Tinsley with a motion. With a second. With a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor, please signal by raise your hand. 7-0. Item 12 is consider purchase of 120 VLA core license packs of Microsoft Data Center Server 2022 and 450 client access license cows from the Dell Georgia State contract amount of $77,022.90. With a motion to approve. Mrs. Murray with a motion. Second by Mr. Tinsley. Any questions? All in favor, please signal by raising your hand. 7-0. Item 13 is consider purchase of 45 desktop computers, 25 monitors, 10 speakers, and 5 laptops with docking stations from the Dell Georgia State contract amount of $58,160.15. Do we have a motion to approve? Mrs. Murray with motion, Mr. Ford with a second.
Quick question.
One quick question, Ms. Flowers?
Okay, I ask this every time because I know that this is on the life cycle. Is this the average, what we're buying is the average that we'll be buying annually? Or every year I'm like, how many pieces do we have, or, and so I know that this is part of a life cycle purchase program. I'm just wondering if it can be anticipated that every year it'll be about 45 desktops or 25 monitors, or how does that work?
Every year we replace about 50 to 60 machines.
Okay, that's what I needed to know.
And our life cycle program is on a 5-year life cycle, give or take. So that's how we derive that number.
Okay.
With motion and second, and a question. All in favor, please signal by raising your hand. 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Cotton. Number 14, consider Electric Cities of Georgia's ECG year and settlement and contract payment and reimbursement in the amount of $21,148.63 and apply it as a credit on the city's ECG bill. Mrs. Ward with a motion, second by Mrs. Murray. All in favor, please signal by raising your hand. 7-0. Item 15 is consider the purchase of echo monitors and field service agreement for flow evaluation of the Potato Creek outfall line with the ADS Environmental Services sole source in the amount of $18,615 for the Department of Watershed Management. Mrs. Murray with a motion. Second by Mrs. Ward. All in favor, please signal by raising your hand. 7-0. Item 16 is consider services from Turner Brothers LLC, lowest quote in the amount of $97,450 for upgrades to the potable water main on Pelly Street. Mrs. Murray with a motion.
Second.
Second by Ms. Flowers. All in favor, please signal by raising your hand. 7-0. Item 7, consider amending the City of Griffin's fiscal year 21-22 solid waste utility fund operating capital budget by appropriating $286,349 to revenue from insurance proceeds and appropriating $139,756 to expense $97,830 for repairs and maintenance service, $30,000 to insurance claims expense, and $11,926 to capital lease interest expense.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Ford with a motion, Mrs. Murray with a second. All in favor, please signal by raising your hand. 7-0. And item 18, consider authorizing travel for Mayor Doug Holder to attend 2021 MEAG Power Mayor's Summit, November 12th to 14th, 21 at Lake Oconee.
So moved.
Mr. Motion by Mr. McCord, second by Mr. Tinsley.
You're not taking Griffin, right?
No, sir, I'm not. No. All in favor, please signal by raising your hand. 7-0. And that takes care of the meeting tonight. Moving into city manager's report.
First, let me just apologize for a lengthy meeting this morning. I know that's a lot of work, but just timing wise, that sort of all came at one time, so we had to get it handled. And on that note, we normally cancel our second meeting in December, so do y'all want to do that? If so, we need to put it on the November 9th agenda. That would be a December 28th meeting. So cancel the,
We can always call it a special meeting.
Yes.
Or
schedule a call meeting.
Call meeting.
Right, because it is scheduled, we just have to cancel it, but we can call a meeting. We would have the 14th, that night meeting as usual, so normally what happens is if we do feel like we need a workshop in December, we just do it on the morning of the 14th. As far as staff and I are concerned, we think everything will be ready for the 23rd, so I'm not sure that we'll even need a workshop in December. If something comes up, we can always call a meeting. But at this time, I will go ahead and put that on the agenda to cancel both workshop and regular meeting on November 9th. For the 28th. I did want to mention that we have our second Connector Award recipients, which is solid waste. The residential and commercial collection divisions, as we all know, they have sort of struggled through equipment and staffing shortages. And so it was recognized by a couple of our citizens recently, and then one of our employees took note of it on a social media post in regards to a citizen very thankful for what the operators were willing to do and how late they were willing to work. And so he nominated them for the Connector Award, and they were chosen out of a handful of very good awards. So we'll be excited to celebrate breakfast with them next Thursday, the 4th, I think it is, at 7:30. So if any of you want to stop by and congratulate them as well, you're welcome to do that at their operations out on Inlet Drive. We also have been made aware that the Cities United Summit, GMA will make a decision tomorrow as to whether or not that will be in person or virtual. If they do decide to do in person, registration will be Monday. So that will be a very quick turnaround. I will get with y'all as soon as we know something and see who wants to attend. This is, of course, the one in January in Atlanta. They do have a tentative schedule out. You should have all received that. I was told it went to elected officials as well. If you would like to see it, let me know, but we'll need to know something pretty quick to get everybody registered on Monday. And lastly, the city website is new and it is up and running, but what I have noticed is we have taken over to just sort of start with a lot of information from the old website. Some of your bios are probably not what you want them to say at this point, if you even knew that you had a bio. Some of them are sort of old. I think Ms. Ward's doesn't show any current times that she served as chairperson. So please take a look at that. And then if you want to update it, send me the information that you want. And I'll make sure to get it to the correct person in IT. But that's sort of a work in progress right now. But please take a minute to look through that website. They've done a lot of work on it. It looks much better. We're very excited to have that up there. And then last but not least, go Braves. We're excited about the World Series tonight.
On the city website, do we have an app out yet?
It's its own, it's not really an app. It now sort of integrates into a phone view, so we don't have to have an app, I think.
Yeah, it's a responsive website, so when you go to the website on your phone, it actually has a mobile view that looks like an app.
Yes. All right.
Mr. Webb?
And
Mr. McCord?
I guess in the spirit of all of that, what we just talked about, I think, at our next meeting, well, our last meeting in December of the year, I hope that Mr. Tinsley can put on the top and look nice and we all take a picture that we can add to our website. I'm sure I can borrow you, you're not wearing tonight. And I just like, I've been serving for such a long time and, it's just good to look back. I was looking at my badge. This is from 1994. And I just, it was just nostalgic. I don't know why I just been wearing them, going back to my old pictures. So I enjoy the team that I work with. And I think it'd be great for us to get Marcus to come out and get a picture of us as a group together.
Our hair's a little grayer and just a little less.
Just a little bit, just a little bit.
Speak for yourself.
That's all I have. No worries.
Mrs. Murray?
Well, it has been a very long day. I was excited about the ARPA money this morning, the workshop, and learning all about that. Exciting, taking the city in a great direction. Thank you everyone for coming, especially the citizens who came forward about the ordinance for the short-term rentals. So I'm not sure if I can say this. I mean, I was considering everything you were all saying, and I was thinking we needed a plan to put in place. At a later date, can I ask a question? If something doesn't work out or this thing transpires, I mean, changes can always be made or ordinances can be changed. So I think it's a good place to start and try to mitigate some of the problems if whatever. So I just wanted to throw that out there because it's all new to me, it's new to us, and I'm sure we're gonna have some kinks in the road along the way as with those things. So thank you all for coming with those concerns, and don't forget, what is Halloween this coming up weekend?
And remember to vote.
Oh, remember to vote. Early voting is February 29th and November 2nd is the day, and Halloween's a huge deal. When is the Saturday one for downtown?
So Thursday is downtown trick or treating from 4 to 6. That's the downtown businesses and of course our customer service and economic development help put that on. And then the city church is actually doing a trunk or treat in the Solomon Park field from 6 to 8. So all that's going on Thursday. And then Saturday is public safety trick or treating, which is at the entrance to Historic Cemetery, Oak Hill Cemetery. And that's county and city. So I think police and fire, sheriff, county fire will all be out there to do that on Saturday. So lots of opportunities to get key.
Thank you. No further comments. Thank you.
Ms. Flowers?
No comment.
Ms. Miller? Mr. Tinsley?
I too would like to encourage all of our citizens, constituents to get out and vote this forward, this run for re-election, and encourage them to seriously consider results.
Please watch.
Go Braves.
Go Braves.
Mr. Rock?
Well, I've been a representative for the hospital authority for the last 7 years, and I haven't made reports every time we had a meeting. But we had one yesterday afternoon that just thrilled my soul. It probably not gonna thrill anybody's soul but mine, but we've been looking at less than 1% 1% increase with the $60 million or so that we've got set aside to help the city of Griffin and help problems. We almost made 2% this last quarter. That is a tremendous amount of money. It's over $300,000 we're talking about they did. And what they're doing with the money, they've cut back in just about every area. We had 11 different concerns that wanted some of the money, some of the profit out of it. And we have cut it back almost 25% because some of them weren't warranted, because some of them asked for too much money, because simply, if we did that, we would not have enough money next year for what we needed to do. So the hospital authority, honest to goodness, committees I've served on over the last 7 years, that is one of the hardest working bunch of folks that we have. And if you're talking about a ton of money, we're talking about a ton of money. So if you see any of them, thank them for what they do, because they really do a very, very good job.
Thank you. So I'm just looking at something on the item 10, it's showing on my agenda October 12th. I think that meeting was held on October 14th.
Special.
The non-special call meeting.
Non-special.
That was held on a Thursday, wasn't it, on the 14th?
It's on the 12th.
Yeah, 3 meetings on the 12th.
Okay,
You were
gotcha.
wrong.
What's that?
You was.
That's right, never mind. Okay, so just want to give a shout out. It is, it's been a long day. We need to look at trying to get a hometown connection legislative forum at some point.
Yes.
And possibly do a joint city-county school
We're
board.
trying, Dr. Ledbetter and I have talked about that a couple of times, where we gotta, I think it's a little bit more difficult because we're trying to do it with GNA and ACCG. But yes, we are working on
Is that involved with Archway and with collaborative anything?
it. Not necessarily, no, this is legislative bodies.
And again, I wish you downtown trick or treating 4 to 6. And then tomorrow we have our all-day Main Street Board annual retreat. It starts at 8:15 to 2:30. Josh from Newtown Macon is going to actually be there at 1:30. So if you know anybody on the boards or committees that may want to hear that story, I'd love for you to come out to the historic City Hall to hear Josh. We also have we still have the call to water, our water authority meeting tomorrow.
It's the joint committee, the joint authority committee, yes.
And that's at
2 o'clock.
That's at 2 o'clock.
Yes.
For Cynthia and myself tomorrow. And where is that going to be?
The annex.
Annex, okay.
Is that a special call?
No, it's just initial.
This whole meeting has been special.
Yeah. All right. So thank you for everybody's staff. Great job. Appreciate your hard work. And for the citizens that came out today, thank you very much for expressing your.
I make a motion that we're.
Mr. McCord made a motion, second by Mr. Brock. All in favor, please leave and chill and relax.